In the midst of the Great Depression, a modern marvel emerged out of the rapid waters of the Columbia River in the wilderness of central Washington. While the construction of the Grand Coulee Dam brought an influx of jobs to the average American citizen, it continues to provide power to the Pacific Northwest today. The successful finish of the Grand Coulee Dam did not come without the tragic deaths of several hardworking Americans who sacrificed their lives to move the country out of dark times. During the Great Depression, which was caused by the stock market crash in 1929, America's Black Tuesday took the country's economy to a dark place. America was in ruins, and millions were out of a job. In June 1933, the Public Works Administration was proposed by Francis Perkins, with goals to provide jobs, revive industry and economy, and stabilize American purchasing power. It was approved by President Franklin D. Roosevelt, which gave billions in public funding. This administration funded and initiated the construction of 34,000 projects across America to benefit the citizens. One of these was the Grand Coulee Dam. While it took the Depression of the 1930s to spark the undertaking, the origin of the dam dates back to 1918, when William Clapp developed a plan to build a dam along the Columbia River. Rufus Woods, editor of the Wenatchee Daily World, kept pushing for the dam to be built, specifically at the town of Grand Coulee. In 1920, the project was considered impossible and rejected for the cost and labor. However, the idea pushed forward when two Washington senators, Wesley Jones and Clarence Dill, proposed the idea in the audience of Congress.
In July 1933, groundbreaking began when David H. Bryan Company began excavating 2 million yards of dirt. Bids for construction began in Spokane, Washington, and the bid was awarded to MWAK, with the lowest bid of $29,339,301. Construction on the project couldn't begin until a cofferdam, a dam used to retain water during construction, was put into place. Engineers came up with a solution, driving steel sheet pilings down until they hit bedrock in an interesting U-shaped design, confining the river. This was when two hardworking American citizens lost their lives. Ransom Burke of Wenatchee died when a 200-pound jackhammer broke loose, impacting his head. About a week later, Thomas Newton was killed when a large load of sheet pilings collided with him when a crane boom snapped. Even though the loss of these two men was tragic, progress on the dam had to continue. On November 15, 1933, millions of cubic feet yards of dirt slid in the excavation zone, delaying the project for weeks. Amazingly, no one was seriously injured. In the beginning of December, the excavation crew ran into problems with the granite rock underneath the dirt. To solve this problem, the MWAK company used jackhammers with steel shafts to make blasting holes. The holes were loaded with dynamite every working shift and blown up after the workers were cleared of the blast zone. By October of 1935, roughly 12 million cubic yards of material had been excavated. Workers built an extensive network of conveyor belts to remove this waste material, which stretched from the site of removal to the waste pile over 3,000 meters south of the dam.
On a cold afternoon on December 6, 1935, a large undertaking would begin. Governor Clarence D. Martin of Washington poured the first buckets of concrete. When the concrete was ready to be poured, 5 or more men, along with the foreman, made a quick survey and dampened the surface with water, then proceeded to pour repetitive layers of concrete. This magnificent accomplishment did not come without a grave cost. Throughout the entirety of the project, an estimated 77 men were killed. While the conveyor belt was being built, 6 brave men lost their lives in construction accidents. A 38-year-old man, B.M. Layport, fell into the conveyor belt and was savagely ripped into pieces between the conveyor rollers and the belt itself. 71 men died over the duration of the rest of the project. Roland H. Tedgemeyer, a marathon swimmer, drowned just below the dam after he was sucked underwater by the rapid currents of the Columbia. The state of Washington paid benefits to the family of each deceased worker.
A lot of people died from falls, either falling onto something falling on them. A lot of the cases, when they were jackhammering the granite on either side where they were going to put the dam. Sometimes you'd be jackhammering and the rock would fall and it would take out your buddy down below, or falling off the structure, actually drowning into the river if you happen to fall in the river. Also, we had some heavy equipment mishaps as well.
Because the dam employed over 8,000 people, several towns sprung up practically overnight. Thousands traveled to Washington by train, automobile, horse and carriage, and on foot well before the work started. This led to people with no ways of getting a job to live in tents, cardboard boxes, tar paper shacks, and in one case, a small cave. With the hope of making money came the uprising of services and entertainment in surrounding towns. From 1933 until 1938, Coulee City doubled its population. However, after MWAK cleared the construction site, most of these services left, leaving the local economy demolished. Engineeringstown and Mason City were built for engineers and supervisors of the construction, which were noticeably nicer than the other towns popping up. By mid-1935, the rising population of central Washington reached 12,000 from a meager 3,000 before the dam started. In 1938, Consolidated Building Company, CBI, took over the construction after MWK left until 1941, when control of the dam was given to the government. In the winter of 1940, 1,000 CBI men installed 11 drum gates, each 150 feet long and 28 feet high. The smaller station generators produced the first power on January 21, 1941, and the second generator followed on February 15th. The full-scale generators began the trek from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and crews from the east came with the parts to install it at Grand Coulee. In late September, the first large generator unit ran successfully. Then, on October 4th, Grand Coulee would break the record for the world's first 108,000 kilowatt generator. 2 days later, the generator synced to the Bonneville Power Administration grid and started providing electricity to people along the West Coast. On June 1, 1942, a crowd of about 15,000 witnessed a great moment in history. At 2:30 p.m., the dam let out a trickle of water, then turned into one of the greatest waterfalls made by man. Behind the dam, the Franklin D. Roosevelt Reservoir stretched 151 miles to the Canadian border, which helped irrigate 670,000 acres in central Washington. 1 year later, the Bureau of Reclamation took over the dam, finalizing CBI's contract and giving the government total control. The company received the final installment of $41,366,900 not long after.
During the Second World War, a majority of the power produced by the dam went towards aluminum industry.
What you had several war industries here in the Northwest. You had Boeing, which was a major one for airplane production. You also had Kaiser building ships down in Portland, Oregon, in that area. And so the dam really contributed a tremendous amount to that by supplying the power to run those factories. And in essence, it was one of the ideas of how we won the war is we just outbuilt them.
In 1962, Washington State Senator Henry Jackson requested about $400 million from Congress to build a third powerhouse on the east side of the dam. This idea was brought up because the U.S. needed more power to compete in the Cold War. On June 14, 1966, President Johnson officially signed the bill to start construction. The third powerhouse was 1,100 feet long, 230 feet above the foundation, and 121 feet wide. The power capacities of the generators had sizes of 1.2, 2.4, and 3.6 million megawatts. To make room for the construction of the powerhouse, contractors removed a 250-foot-long section of the original dam structure. This was accomplished by excavating a large canal and blasting an 11,000-ton piece off the east side of the dam. Bids for construction were awarded to 4 firms: Funnel Corporation, Dravo Corporation, Lockheed Corporation, and Mannix Construction joined together. Their bid was accepted with a price of $112,512,612, and the first concrete was poured in October 1970. Many disagreements arose between the 4 companies. With tensions rising, Dravo Corporation pulled out of the pack, assuming responsibility for the overuse of the budget.
By March, the contractors were working amazingly ahead schedule, removing the final 700,000 cubic feet of rock. The construction was completed by the end of 1974, and generators could now be installed. 2 different companies were awarded the bids for the 6 generators. The Westinghouse Company built the first 2 generators, rated at 600,000 kilowatts. The other bid was given to the Canadian General Electric Company for 3 units at 700,000 kilowatts. When the third powerhouse was finished at the end of 1974, it produced 2/3 of all power that came from Grand Coulee. The Grand Coulee Dam was finished on schedule, under budget, and as a whole produced the most electrical power in the world until 1984. Today, the Grand Coulee Dam still produces and provides for Washington State, 11 states along the West Coast, and British Columbia. It is the largest hydropower producer in the United States, generating more than 21 billion kilowatt hours of electricity, which supplies power to roughly 2.3 million households per year. It stands as a monument to the American spirit of ingenuity, overcoming tragedies, and making the impossible possible.